being paid to be former British and Irish Lions captain, and Welsh fly half Phil Bennett, who died at the age of 73. He helped Wales win 2 Five Nations Grand Slams and also starred in the Lions' historic unbeaten tour of South Africa in 1974. But after he retired, he said his proudest moment came in his Glenelg shirt, beating the All Blacks, regarded as one of the game's all-time greats. At the age of Northern Ireland manager Ian Barraclough insists he won't be leaving his role despite their poor run. His side needed this late goal from Johnny Evans to salvage a 2-2 draw with Cyprus in the Nations League. Boos were heard from sections of the crowd, with fans unhappy that Northern Ireland have now gone 14 games without a win in the competition.
So listen, people can boo all they like. I'm not going for it unless I'm told, and that's something for somebody else to make that decision. But I'm proud of what the players have produced today and over the 4 games. Players that didn't know each other when coming together.
Away from football, contrasting fortunes as world champion Max Verstappen extended his lead in the Formula One Drivers' Championship. Lewis Hamilton, though, said he might not be able to drive in the next race because of a painful back brought on by his bouncing Mercedes. In Azerbaijan, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc started on pole, but for the second time in 3 races retired with engine trouble. That left Verstappen free to take the win ahead of teammate Sergio Perez. And Britain's George Russell in his Mercedes finishing 3rd. Hamilton, though, emerging, clutching his back, having finished 4th because of issues with his car. Mercedes said they would consider using a substitute driver in Canada if Hamilton didn't feel fit enough to race. More injury concerns for Andy Murray. Despite reaching his first grass court final in 6 years, he received extensive treatment on his side during his defeat in the final of the Stuttgart Open yesterday, which he lost to Matteo Berrettini. He's meant to play in Queens tomorrow, and then, of course, at Wimbledon in a couple of weeks' time. A scan today will determine how serious the issue is. Better news for Dan Evans. The British number 2 won the Nottingham Open title for the 2nd time with a straight sets win over Australian Jordan Thompson. He didn't drop a set through the entire tournament. No time for celebrating, though. He was straight in the car to head down to Queens ahead of his match there tomorrow. And Swedish golfer Linn Grant made history by becoming the first woman to win on the DP World Tour, formerly the European Tour. She was taking part in a Scandinavian mixed event, which combined players from men's and women's European tours, and it was emphatic. She won by 9 shots. She only turned professional last year, was the only woman to finish in the top 10. Brilliant. She's been winning lots and lots of tournaments. And it's interesting because you think about the money that's being spent on this breakaway live golf tour, enticing all the very best. You want to make the game perhaps funnels the money into more mixed events, which arguably might have a better impact than just drawing in.
It's quite refreshing.
Men's golfers.
It was refreshing to watch that, I think, in contrast, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. You know,
John, thank you for now. We'll see you again a bit later.
Now, with a shortage of doctors and GP appointments in the UK becoming increasingly difficult to book, there's evidence that one provider of NHS GP services could be risking the health of patients.
Yeah, there's an investigation by BBC's Panorama programme tonight, and it suggests that Operos Health is using less qualified, cheaper staff without adequate supervision, leading some to claim it's putting profit before patient care. We've got this report from Panorama now, from Jackie Wakefield.
Hi, and I'm starting today as a receptionist. I worked undercover at this busy London surgery for almost 6 weeks. We're not naming the practice or anyone who works there.
You've been waiting for 6 months. Honestly, if I could help, I would.
It's owned by Operos Health, the UK's biggest GP chain with 70 surgeries and almost 600,000 patients. While I was working at the practice, there weren't enough GPs to meet demand.
I'm really sorry, sir. We've already booked out this morning. It's been a really crazy morning. I'm so sorry. Are you able to call tomorrow or call 111? Yeah, I understand it's frustrating. I'm looking at my screen now and there's nothing I can do. There's no more appointments. I'm sorry.
Since the start of the NHS, most GP practices have been owned and managed by doctors, known as partners. In 2007, the then Labour government changed the rules, allowing bigger businesses, like Operos, to buy into general practice. At the practice where I worked, patients were also seen by other, less qualified clinical staff, called physician associates or PAs. They're being increasingly employed in general practice to help relieve the pressure, but should be supervised by doctors. The PAs here told me they aren't getting enough support.
So on a normal day, how much would you? So you don't necessarily have like a debrief every day.
No. You just come in, you just get on with your work.
We showed our undercover footage to Professor Sir Sam Everington, a practicing senior GP partner.
The thing I worry about here is the physicians associates are saying they're not getting enough supervision. So they know they need more. They're clearly articulating it, but they're not getting it. And that's a problem. And that must be massively stressful for them. But inevitably, that cannot be a safe system.
Opera says a clinical lead is available to help answer these questions. NHS data shows that Opera practices employ 6 times as many physician associates as the NHS average. I asked management staff at this surgery why they use them.
Why have PAs and not just more GPs?
It's cheaper. A GP would earn £95 per hour 100. Or £100 per hour. Whereas a PA, 45. No, less than that.
So less than half.
When I hear words like cheap, I'm not quite sure that they're utterly focused on giving the best possible care in the circumstances to patients. They're putting profits, money, ahead of quality of care. That is a massive risk to patients.
Opera's Health denies that profit is being prioritised ahead of patient care. It says 97% of its practices are rated good or outstanding by the Care Quality Commission. And it works in the best interests of patients, providing access to the highest quality of care. Jackie Wakefield, BBC News.
And you can watch more on that investigation on Panorama tonight. That's at 8 o'clock on BBC One. And of course, it will be on the BBC iPlayer afterwards.
Just after 7:15, let's return to our top story now, because the government later today is going to release what it's calling its food strategy for England.
Yes, ministers are promising to back farmers. Earlier promises to take sugar, salt and junk food do not appear in as part of the plan. Let's get some reaction now from the Shadow Environment Secretary, Jim McMahon. Morning to you, Mr McMahon. He's in Oldham this morning. You said already that this isn't necessarily a food strategy. What would the Labour food strategy be?
Well, it's important to repeat that this is not a strategy, it's not a plan, and it's been roundly criticised by all who have seen the leaked content, including, by the way, the very person that the government commissioned to do the initial review. Labour is really clear that now, more than almost any time during the Second World War, we need a food strategy that really holds water and gives us affordable, good quality food that is secure.
Mr. McMahon, I think we're having a little bit of trouble with the sound on this line. I'm going to ask you another question, stick with it and see if we can improve it slightly. I'm just going to ask you that again. What would the Labour food strategy be?
Well, we're clear the government have not brought forward a strategy. It's been roundly criticised and quite rightly.
So what's the Labour one then?
Person that the government has asked to do the review. Well, we were calling during the cost of living crisis and the supply chain crisis for the government to bring together different government departments, different layers of government, devolved nations, local government, and also industry to make sure that we're dealing with the real cost pressures in the system, and also that there is real support for farmers. You know, the government are removing now the direct payments to farmers. That means that a third of farmers will not be financially viable under the new system.
We know, don't we, that the cost of living crisis has been developing for a long time now. And to combat that, there needs to be a credible strategy in place. Do you think, though, at this point, though, you need more than what you've just said to me, more concrete details about what you would be doing?
Well, at the moment, we have this situation where increasingly more and more people are pushed into food poverty, where at the same time, they literally have food left rotting in the fields because we haven't got people to take it away from the fields and make sure it comes onto our supermarket shelves. And that's why you need a single plan across government, across industry, to make sure that, one, we deal with the input costs that are really driving up food inflation, that we make sure that we've got adequate labour to get the food onto the shelves, and also that we have healthy food, because for too many people, they live in healthy food deserts. They just haven't got access to that quality food. And so that's why you need a single strategy. This was a time when the government could have really stepped up. It could have tackled the cost of living crisis. It could have backed our British farmers, but frankly, they just failed.
Okay, let's talk about the health issues, shall we? Looking at the possibility of a sugar tax, a salt tax. Is it time to introduce them?
Well, we said from the outset that we need to make sure that health interventions are right, because too many people are obese, too many people haven't got access to healthy food, and the sugar and salt levy was a way of achieving that. The government actually committed to that. It's just now they decided to use them.
It's not the time to introduce taxes now, though, is it, when people are struggling to pay their bills?
But there is never a good time to introduce new taxes. But the fact is that there are too many people in the country who don't have access to good quality food. And actually, the Dimbleby recommendation was about having a levy on high content sugar and salt food and drink, to make sure then that you could cross-subsidise healthier options to reduce the cost of food for healthy options.
Jim McMahon, we're going to leave it there. We do have a little bit of a technical problem, I think, with the sound on the line this morning. So apologies for anyone who struggled to hear that. Jim McMahon, Shadow Environment Secretary.
Then we got the gist of it.
We did, we got most of it.
Pretty much there. Let's check our line to Carol, shall we, and get the
Perfect,
weather.
I'm
We want that to be crystal clear because the weather's quite nice. Morning, Carol.
Not too bad. Good morning, Will. Good morning to you too. If you like your weather that wee bit warmer, that's certainly going to happen more especially across England and Wales this week. By Friday, parts of the southeast of England could hit 30 degrees, possibly even a little bit more. But for Scotland and Northern Ireland, although your temperatures are going to go up a bit, you'll still be generally in the mid to the high teens. Now, today what we've got is a fair bit of cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland, coming in across Wales and southwest England, some spots of rain and drizzle too in the north and the west. And after a sunny start in some central and eastern areas, the clouds going to build through the course of the day. There'll still be some sunny intervals, and it will brighten up later across Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England, with top temperatures up to 21 degrees. So a couple of degrees cooler than yesterday when it was 23, the high at Heathrow. But something you'll notice today that is high is the pollen level across England and also Wales, high or very high. We're talking especially grass pollen at the moment. For this evening and overnight then, we hang on to a fair bit of cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some more rain comes in. The cloud also sticks across the far southeast, but in between there'll be some clear skies and not a particularly cold night. So tomorrow we've got the cloud in the southeast to clear, which it will, it should be dry. We also have this cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland, and that too will be producing some showers, but in between there'll be some sunshine, and temperatures 13 in Lerwick, 20 in London, but up to about 25 in the London area. Then as we head on into Wednesday, a lot of dry weather around, especially across England and Wales and most of Scotland. But you can see in the west more cloud and also some splashes of rain coming in here. Temperatures 14 in Stornoway, 18 in Belfast, but creeping up to about 27 as we slip down towards the southeast. And as we carry on through Thursday and into Friday, it's England and Wales that will see the highest values. And as you saw at the start, potentially up to about 30, somewhere in the southeast. John and Sal.
Wow. Wow.
John's telling us summer's here, Carol. I'm not sure whether to believe him.
It's quite varied, isn't it? And it's, yeah.
It is, and it's not necessarily going to stay at that level either, John. So if you like it that hot, well, you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, no.
And move. Carol, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, residents of the Yorkshire town of Whitby will head to the polls today, but this is no ordinary election.
Yeah, this is a referendum, a local referendum on what many people believe is their most important, pressing political issue in Whitby, second homes.
The non-binding poll will ask voters if they want new build properties to be reserved for locals only, many of whom say they can't afford to buy in their own hometown. Richard Moss went to Whitby to find out more.
Wonderful Whitby, picturesque, popular, but pricey. House values here are high and rising. Estate agents selling properties as fast as they go on the market.
This one's gone back on today.
But not generally to locals.
I would say mainly your second home stroke investors with holiday cottages. That makes up 75%, I would have thought. So a lot of the time people find that they are sort of outpriced, or they find that they are in a position where they're competing with people sort of coming into Whitby, really.
And that's led to big changes in the town. Sandra has lived here since she was a child, but she says actions now needed to ensure she isn't one of the last locals left.
The residents want to send a very loud message that enough is enough. It's not that we're against tourism, we're not. But we don't want to give up our town either. We need to live here, we need to be able to work here. Families want their families to be able to stay here and not move away. And that's what's happening. People are having to move out of the town to enable themselves to live and own a home.
Of course, one solution might be to build more homes, but that doesn't seem to be working.
We're giving planning permission for new developments on the basis that that's going to provide housing stock for the housing needs for local people, but that's not happening. That's been taken away. So, for example, a new development just recently built, I think 20 out of the new properties built, 19 of those went to holiday lets, which again is just it's crazy. I mean, we need to stop that so local people then have a chance of getting on that ladder.
Whitby is holding a referendum. The town council will be asking locals to vote for a ban on the sale of any new property to anyone who wants it for a second home or holiday let. But there is one hitch. The poll itself can't change anything because the town council has called it doesn't actually have the powers to ban anyone here buying a second home. But even if the poll is technically toothless, backers of a ban hope it will add to pressure for planning changes that could bite. Otherwise, they fear a town famously associated with Dracula could be drained of local life.
Really interested to know what you think about that story this morning. What should happen in Whitby?
And it's not just Whitby, is it? There's
No.
so many other places, so many other parts of the country where that's. We've talked about the Lake District, we've done in Cornwall before. So yeah, do get in touch with us this morning.
It is 6:56. It's time to get the news, the travel, and the weather where you are this morning.
See you in a second.
Hello, good morning. I'm Tom Hepworth. Police are continuing to question a 15-year-old boy from Oxford arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a man was stabbed. It happened in People's Park in Banbury at around 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. A number of people in the park gave him emergency first aid before paramedics arrived. Detectives investigating the rape of a girl in the sea off Bournemouth Beach have arrested a man. A 15-year-old said she'd been playing with friends near the Oceanarium before she was attacked in July last year. An 18-year-old man from the West Midlands was arrested on suspicion of rape and then released later on bail. Politicians have issued a stark warning about a shortage of NHS dentists on the Isle of Wight. A report for councillors found only a quarter of children on the island had seen a dentist between July and December last year. It was also claimed that much of the preventative work dentists carry out has now fallen by the wayside. Health managers say they are trying to address the issue. Worthing and Bournemouth have been named in a new league table of what are being called Zoom towns, hotspots for home working. The pandemic saw many people previously commuting to offices using technology to work from home instead. And with centres like this one in Bournemouth providing facilities to help, seaside towns are seen as more attractive because of the work-life balance they offer. Worthing has seen a six-fold increase in job adverts offering remote working opportunities.
The phrase was coined to describe the new phenomenon of workers moving away from traditional city hubs. In Bournemouth, the number of job adverts that offer candidates the flexibility to work remotely is growing at a faster pace than the overall jobs available for the area. Sectors like financial services and public sector services, where remote working is generally feasible.
A new play opens this week, inspired by the Newbury bypass protests of the 1990s. Camp Albion looks at the people behind the protests, those who help focus attention on the environment as a key priority in future planning schemes. Writer Danielle Pearson says those involved were the forerunners of today's environmental activists. Wasn't that long ago. Here's the weather with Pete Tucker.
Hi, good morning. Things are set to warm up as we head through this week. By the end of the week, we could be looking at temperatures in the late 20s. Today, fine and dry, plenty of sunshine. There will be Like yesterday, a little bit of cloud building as the day goes on. A lot of sunshine first thing, that cloud tending to build towards the middle part of the day. So I think slightly cloudier skies into the afternoon. Still some decent spells of sunshine, light winds as well, and temperatures peaking at around 21 degrees. Now, as we go through tonight, that cloud tending to break up. I think we'll see some clear spells overnight, 1 or 2 mist patches. Temperatures perhaps a little bit lower than last night, down into single figures for most. So another fine day tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, less cloud as well. So those temperatures will climb, and for some it will be unbroken sunshine. We could see highs tomorrow of 23 degrees.
That is the latest. Stay with us if you can. We're back with more in about half an hour. See you then.
Right now, that rover, Perseverance, is 200 million miles away on the surface of Mars. And I've been given extraordinary access, following the rover's every move as it attempts to travel further than ever before.
Brian Cox, 7 Days on Mars, Friday at 9 on BBC Two and iPlayer.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Hello, morning. Our headlines today. A strategy to secure the future of the food on our plates is unveiled by the government, but critics say it doesn't do enough to improve the health of people or the planet.
Personal items belonging to the missing British journalist Dom Phillips and his Brazilian colleague are discovered by police in a remote area of the Amazon rainforest.
He has done it. 5 years after being horrifically injured in the Manchester Arena bombing, Martin Hibbert conquers Mount Kilimanjaro.
Don't write off somebody because in a wheelchair. Look at what they can do when they've got the right help and support. They can climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
It's all go at this door factory in Rochdale, but there are fears it'll be warning lights flashing for the state of the UK economy. I have the latest economic growth figures for you in just a few minutes.
Good morning.
Credit perfect.
Greatest ever.
So 20
However,
quid,
Joe
the
Root's
bastards.
century, his fastest, has his teammate purring over his performance.
Good morning. It's a sunny start for some of us this morning, but for most today, it is going to be fairly cloudy with some spots of rain across the north and the west.
They don't do
And if you
nothing
like
for
the
me.
weather
They're
a bit
doing
warmer,
fuck
it's
all.
getting more
They're
than
taking
this
20
week,
quid a month.
especially across
Shit,
England
man.
and Wales. I'll have all the details later on in the programme.
Good morning. It's Monday, June the 13th. More homegrown produce and more support for farmers. They'll be the central promises within the government's food strategy for England, which is being released later today.
Now, this plan should improve food security, but well-publicised recommendations to reduce consumption of salt, sugar and junk food are not now expected to be included. Here's our environment correspondent, Claire Marshall.
From the fields to our forks, more than 3 years in the making, this is the government's plan for how our entire food system should look. At its heart are the farmers. Growing our own will boost food security, the government says, and create jobs. Among the plans, a framework for farming the land sustainably, including taking care of nature, a consultation on whether the public sector, hospitals, schools and care homes should spend more of their budgets on locally grown or higher standard food. There will be a review of the labour shortage, including using more machines and issuing more visas for migrants. No mention of reducing meat consumption, but there will be money for research into meat alternatives. This comes after a wide-ranging review by restaurateur Henry Dimbleby. He told the BBC less than half of his recommendations had been adopted, but it wasn't a disaster. There was progress on how the environment could be helped, he said, and a recognition of the damage being done by the junk food cycle. But there was nothing on trade. Imported foods could still be produced to lower standards. After withering criticism of an earlier leaked draft, the National Farmers Union now welcomes the plans.
I think it's really welcome to see government committing to food production and food security. There's a strong commitment in there to maintain our current levels of self-sufficiency and to produce more effectively of what we're good at, more of our fruit and vegetables, which have been in decline. So, that's a laudable ambition. There's strong commitments on government procurement, more British, more local into our schools and hospitals. And that's very, very welcome indeed for farmers. But I think all of this will depend on the policies that are put in place to deliver it. So it's the start of a journey.
Many campaigners are asking, though, what happened to the proposed sugar and salt tax and healthier school meals? According to the government, these will be addressed in another white paper at a later date. Claire Marshall, BBC News.
We promised to bring you the very latest GDP figures, and the UK economy shrank by 0.3% in April compared to the same time last year.
Yeah, this is the GDP figure, the gross domestic product, which has just been released in the last couple of minutes. Ben's at a factory in Rochdale this morning, looking at life there, but also looking at these numbers. And this seems to be significant, Ben.
It is, and it affects businesses like this one and businesses up and down the country. As you say, the UK economy shrank by 0.3% in April. Now, it's significant because that follows a shrinking of the economy the month before. It shrank by 0.1% in March. Why does this matter? Well, GDP, gross domestic product, is the value of everything that is made and sold in the UK. If it grows, that means there's more money around, and more money means generally more jobs and more investment. Conversely, if it's shrinking, which is what we've seen in that April figure, it means there's less money. It means there's less investment and potentially fewer jobs, which is a concern for us all. And one of the things that has jumped out at us from this latest set of figures is all parts of the economy shrank. Services, production, and construction. And that doesn't often happen. Normally, some sections grow, others shrink. But this time, in April, all sections of the economy shrank. What can we read into this? Well, let's speak to an economist, Nina Skerro from the CEBR, joins us. What do you make of this figure? What does it tell us?
I'm really worried. If you had asked me just a few minutes ago before we saw the GDP figures what I was expecting, I probably would have said I would have expected the economy to flatline between March and April, maybe shrink to 0.1%, but a contraction of 0.3%, it's quite stark and it's much worse than anybody would have really expected. So it's quite a worrisome release.
And what is the effect of this? How does this relate to people's daily lives, this shrinking of the economy?
Well, as you just mentioned, it seems that the release is quite broad, the decrease is quite broad-based. So I imagine a number of households are feeling the pinch, and we've of course been talking about for months about the cost of living crisis, and it seems like things are going to be getting worse before they get better. I suspect this isn't the last GDP decline we're going to be seeing in this year.
Okay, Nina, thank you very much. Nina Skerro there. And Nina mentioned the cost of living crisis. It's something we talk about a lot on the programme, isn't it? But this is the real effect of that. If people are feeling the pinch in their household budgets, they've got less to spend. So the economy, the wheels of it are not turning as quickly or as well. The economy isn't growing. And the danger is that becomes a bit of a vicious circle, because if people aren't able to spend as much, businesses are making less money. Maybe they cut back on jobs. Maybe they can't give pay rises. And so that feeds into that vicious circle and perpetuates that downward trend. But as I say, that figure that we've had just in the last few minutes shows the UK economy shrank by 0.3% in April. I have more from this factory in Rochdale for you a little later in the programme.
Okay, Ben, we will be back with you very shortly. Thank you so much for now.
Now, the government is due to officially start the process today that will allow ministers to override parts of the post-Brexit trade arrangements for Northern Ireland.
Yeah, this is the so-called protocol that was agreed with the European Union to try to avoid a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
Our political correspondent, Nick Eardley, can explain this for us. So, Nick, what exactly is happening today and how much opposition will there be?
Good morning to you guys. Well, today we get the legislation, which is the UK government's attempt to answer some of the problems that have come up as a result of the Brexit deal and trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So what the UK government is going to do is give power to ministers in London to basically override parts of the Brexit deal, to make trade easier between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, to set rules on things like VAT in Northern Ireland, and to change the rules about who polices the protocol, giving more power to the British courts, less power to European courts. Now, this is going to be really controversial because lots of people think it breaks international law. The UK government says it doesn't, and it needs to protect the Good Friday Agreement and peace in Northern Ireland. The European side says that it overrides the Brexit deal and therefore is a breach of international obligations. So you're going to see a big row once this stuff is published later today.
not just between the UK and Brussels, though, there's also a row in the Conservative Party, because Brexiteers who really want to see a tougher approach are really happy with this. They think they've won the battle in government. Some on the other side of the party are less convinced, and we've seen an internal briefing that's doing the rounds among Tory MPs that says this flies in the face of everything that's good for the UK and everything that Conservatives stand for. So it's going to be really controversial. It's going to cause some big rows. And I'm not sure it's actually going to do just yet what it's supposed to do, which is get the DUP, the Unionist Party, back into power sharing in Stormont, the Assembly in Northern Ireland. So this story still has a long way to go, and a lot of that is going to involve a big row.
Nick, thanks very much indeed.
Brazilian police say they found personal items belonging to the British journalist Dom Phillips, who's been missing in a remote part of the Amazon rainforest for more than a week now.
The items include Mr. Phillips' boots and a backpack with clothes in. He went missing with another man, Bruno Pereira. Our South America correspondent, Katie Watson, has sent us this report.
It was along this stretch of water that Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira disappeared. The vastness of the Amazon plain to see. The armed forces are out searching. So too are the indigenous communities, many of whom knew Bruno personally. He helped train indigenous groups to defend themselves against the increasing threat of illegal fishermen and poachers. Dom Phillips was writing a book, which was why the two men were travelling together, Bruno introducing Dom to people who knew. The indigenous community has set up camp near where they disappeared, who were asked not to identify anyone because they fear reprisals.
A fisherman financed by the narcos will do what they probably did to Bruno, end their life, because they see us as an obstacle.
Our river guide is Felipe. He and his father run a fishing tourism business, and the two men were staying in their small hotel. Dom was really interested in the environment and was passionate about the Amazon and told us what he was writing, Felipe tells me. He interviewed us and asked us about our work. Upriver, we come across a search team focused on a small area. The indigenous teams alongside, they know the terrain better than anyone.
There's a police boat in the distance. Beyond that, there's another one further into the jungle. We've been told we can't go any further, but clearly something they're looking at. We've been here for several hours now.
Shortly after, it sealed off. We were told later that this was where Bruno and Dom's belongings were found. The search teams continue, but these new developments point to a devastating conclusion and hopes faded of finding the two men alive. Katie Watson, BBC News, in Valley de Javari.
A group of US senators from both sides of the political divide has reached an agreement on potentially tightening gun laws following a spate of mass shootings and a weekend of protests. Measures could include tougher background checks for younger buyers and preventing the purchase of firearms for other people. The country's biggest gun lobby group, the National Rifle Association, said it will oppose any effort to deprive Americans of their right to own firearms.
Now, the family of a former British soldier who was killed while helping Ukrainian troops to defend the city of Severodonetsk in Ukraine have paid tribute to him.
Jordan Gatley, who left the British Army in March, is the second Briton to die in the conflict. He was described as a hero by his father, Dean.
Let's speak to Joe Inwood, our correspondent who's live for us in Kyiv today. And Joe, what more can you tell us about Jordan and what he was doing in Ukraine?
So we understand that Jordan Gatley was killed on Friday, according to his family, fighting in the city of Severodonetsk. This is an eastern industrial city. It's the current focus of the Russian offensive. Now, his father, Dean Gatley, wrote an emotional tribute to him on Facebook saying he was a hero and forever in their hearts. But he also gave some details of what he'd been doing. We understand that Jordan had gone out there to help train Ukrainian units and had been fighting with them as well, because of course Severodonetsk is not a training area. This is very much the front line. And he had apparently been messaging his family saying the missions they were going on were very dangerous, but very necessary. Tributes came in as well from politicians here, from Mikhailo Podolyak, who's an advisor to the president, saying that he was a hero and it took real bravery to come and travel all this way from your home to come and fight what he described as evil.
Now, in terms of that battle for Severodonetsk, where Jordan died, it is an intense street fight. It is meter by meter is being contested, according to the Ukrainians. The Russians do seem to be advancing. They've got an advantage in terms of artillery and numbers of men, and so they are pounding Ukrainian positions. But the Ukrainians are holding on, and they really say they're going to try and defend this city. We think, though, the coming days could be decisive for this conflict which has cost another British soldier his life.
Okay, for now, Joe in Kyiv, thank you.
Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we will have an update on Martin Hibbert, who we have been following for months now as he attempts to climb Kilimanjaro. We're going to show you a film and you're going to find out what happened.
Yeah, if you think you had a busy weekend and you did a lot, wait till you see what Martin has been trying to achieve. It is a remarkable, amazing Monday morning story.
But for now, let's go straight to Carol, who has been teasing us already this morning with talk about sunshine. Morning, Carol.
That's right. Good morning, Sal and John. Good morning to you too. You know, for some of us, it's a beautiful, sunny start to the day. One of our weather watchers from Goring by Sea sent in this picture just a little bit earlier, blue skies. But of course, it's not like that everywhere. Across the north and the west, there is more cloud. That cloud across northern and western Scotland, just into the north of Northern Ireland, producing some patchy light rain. And through the day, more cloud will develop across the board. There will still be some sunny spells, but the emphasis will be on cloud rather than sunshine, except for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, where it should brighten up. Now, temperatures today, 13 to 21, so a little bit cooler than it was yesterday. But the pollen levels across Wales and England are high or very high. We're talking grass and also a little bit of nettle pollen in there too. Now, through this evening and overnight, we hang on to a fair bit of cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland, more rain coming into the West Highlands, and we hang on to some cloud across the southeast. But in between, there will be some clear skies. So tomorrow, this cloud eventually pulls away. It's going to be dry across much of the UK, except for across the north and west, where we'll see some spots of light rain and some drizzle. Temperatures tomorrow up on today. We're looking at roughly 14 to about 25. And as Sal and John alluded to, it's getting warmer as we go through the rest of this week, more especially in England and Wales.
Carol, thank you very much indeed.
Now, we have an update for you this morning on a story we have been covering here on the programme since the very beginning. Martin Hibbert's attempt to conquer Mount Kilimanjaro.
Well, we are delighted to tell you this morning that he has done it. He's done it. 5 years after Martin was paralysed in the Manchester Arena bombing, he reached the summit of Africa's highest mountain this weekend in that specialised wheelchair that he's shown us here on Breakfast, aided by a team of local guides and porters and his supporters.
And also a team from BBC Breakfast who got to the top with him. Kate and Anne got all the way to the top as well. We're going to play you their very, very special film at 8:15. You will not want to miss it. But here is a quick sneak preview.
The top of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa, and Martin Hibbert is on the final approach. Only 65% of climbers make it this far. Martin has done it in a wheelchair.
I could just see the sign at the top. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or it was just such a relief to get there and know that we've done it. Something I'll always remember. I think we'll all come back as different people, and I certainly will do. Just the love and like that, then I'll definitely be a different person there going on. And I think everyone else will be as well. No, it doesn't stop here. You know what I mean? We've climbed a mountain, but we now need to move mountains to get what we need to do in terms of social care change, changes in accessibility and things like that. So I'm going to need all these people to continue giving me that love and support.
Martin's aim is to raise £1 million for the Spinal Injuries Association. He's currently about halfway to that total.
And Nick Hartley is the charity's chief executive and joins us now. You had tears in your eyes watching that, didn't you? Yeah.
I did. It's amazing. It's an emotional moment for us.
Just sum up Martin's achievement, because I mean, you see the pictures and you see the numbers, but what he's done, you can't really put it into words.
Yeah, and if I may, to go back 2 years, I was sitting in a room with Martin listening to stories of the charities, people they were serving, and we were in shock. Horrible stuff of people who can't even leave their homes, people who can't get basic health and care and all these kinds of things. And he slipped me a post-it note that said, the first thing he wrote was, I want to turn an act of terror into good for human beings. And you kind of stop listening to the board meeting when Martin passes you that. And the phrase he so often used, he said, I need to do something that will make people say he did what? You've heard him say that sitting here. He did what?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And the opportunity that this gives to tell the story of spinal cord injury and tell the story of what he's achieved is immense.
Can we talk for just a moment about the physical feat of what he's done here? Because, I mean, we're used to talking to Martin. He's so positive. He would never say a negative word. He's always upbeat. But the physical struggle he has been through over the last several years it's almost unthinkable at times, isn't it?
It is, and it's really important to understand there's both the physical feat of going up a mountain, but this isn't a disabled man goes up a mountain with a wheelchair. This is a man says, I'm coming out of something terrible and I'm going to do something that can change the lives of people, as I repeat, who can't even leave their bedrooms because of a spinal cord injury. And they're getting to see a man who's gone to 5,500 meters where there's very little oxygen. I believe 2 or 3 had to come down the mountain during the journey.
That's right. Some of his teammates, some of the people who were there to help him had to drop out because of altitude sickness.
Yeah, and he's there still singing at the top. It's incredible. It's about mental as well as physical. This.
He's back down now. He's come back down in the last day or so. You've had a bit of an exchange with him on messaging. Well, how is he? What's he saying?
He's fine and he's exhausted. But the bit I love and the bit that makes me feel emotional when I sit here is Martin wants this to be the beginning. He wants to now talk about and get people talking about the charity, what it does, how it serves people, how it fights for people day in, day out. And it was amazing. His text message about this is it, mate. I said, I need to start a revolution. We need to start a conversation about spinal cord injury, what happens in the UK. And that's what he started talking about off a mountain.
And look at that mountain. I mean, just looking at the pictures of where he got to and what he achieved. It's just awesome, isn't it?
It is amazing. It is amazing. And we followed literally every step. I wanted to go with him. I worked in the humanitarian world before this, and this is a humanitarian cause. And I know Tanzania well. And the thought that he has scaled the mountain that I've looked at from the foothills and never imagined I would go up years and years ago is incredible.
Now, I know one of the things you want to do is you want a specialist nurse and a counsellor in every region of the UK. What would those people do and why would they be important?
So when somebody's spinal cord injured, we talk about a wheelchair and paralysis of arms and legs, but it's also paralysis of bowel and bladder and sexual function and skin and conditions. And we know that the NHS is amazing at, as he always says, putting people back together. But the next bit is how do you rebuild a life? And so we've come as a charity in to take up cases of people, I keep saying, who can hardly leave their home, who can't get their job back and just need adjustments. So we focus around having specialist nurses, people who understand the skin, the bowel, the bladder, of having mental health specialist counselling, people who get that you have a spinal cord injury. Our head counsellor is a spinal cord injured person. And then a coordinator in each region. So if we can raise this money, if the public can buy into what Martin is saying and be inspired by him and get behind this and raise the £1 million, we could have a nurse and a specialist counsellor and crucially an advocate to fight for people's case, to be able to just get that tweak for a job change or whatever it is that they need to be able to get.
And he's doing that. He's got a Just Giving page, hasn't he?
He's got a Just Giving page, Martin's Mountain, Just Giving. That's all you need to look up. If you look up Martin's Mountain, Just Giving, you will be able to get to it. And if we can get to that £1 million, I commit to making sure this charity can reach every single spinal cord injured person in the country.
And you sent him a message saying, go and have a beer. And what did he say?
I'm in bed and I'm staying there for 20 hours, I think it's what he said.
Maybe somebody could take him a beer in bed.
I don't think so. Well, we'll have it when he gets back.
Certainly will.
Definitely.
We look forward to seeing him here as well.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
me
you.
on.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks, Nick.
Now, 24 minutes past 7, we're getting reaction this morning on breakfast to the government's big announcement about food strategy for England, which it's going to publish a bit later, isn't it? A bit later this morning.
Yes, it was created following a report by the restaurateur Henry Dimbleby, but leaked previews suggest only half of his recommendations will actually be implemented. He joins us now from Cumbria. Morning to you, Henry. I'm really interested to know what your take is on what the government is due to announce today.
Well, I think what they're announcing today is it's progress. It's a list of policies rather than a strategy, as it says on the cover. But there are some good policies in there, in particular a land use framework, which could be transformational. But on environment, we need to be bolder. We need to do more. And then on health, that's been kicked down the road. So they've said that the health secretary will respond with policies on the health issue in his health disparities white paper. So all eyes now on the health side are on the health secretary for that paper later this year.
So what were your suggestions regarding health?
So some of them they've already done. So what I pointed out was that there was a junk food cycle. The problem was a toxic feedback loop between our evolved appetite, which loves to eat the stuff that is sugary, fatty, salty, and the commercial incentives of companies, which means that they spend more and more money marketing the stuff that we love to eat. We eat more of it, they spend more, and we get sick. And I said that feedback loop had to be broken with legislation. The companies on their own can't get themselves out of that cycle. They're stuck in it as much as us. I recommended a reformulation tax on salt and sugar. What's interesting is the government have actually recognised that the junk food cycle exists in this white paper, the first time a government's done that. And they have said that the health secretary will be responding. So I'm hoping that the health secretary will be bold and brave in a difficult political context and act to break that junk food cycle, and we get away from this narrative of personal responsibility and education, which is important, but it isn't going to get us out of the hole we're in.
And how disappointed were you, honestly, when you saw that actually only half of your recommendations will be spoken about today?
Well, actually, funny enough, it's not just today. One of the natures of government, and I wrote this in the strategy, is that it finds it difficult to coordinate. So different government departments have different responsibilities for food. You've actually seen the response. The first actions they put in place were after Marcus Rashford campaigned for some of my recommendations last year. Then in January this year, in the Levelling Up white paper, they enacted some of my recommendations on education. But this is now my third go. I should feel flattered that this is my third response. And they've put in place another set of regulations. We're now over 50%. We've got another response to come. So, is it the big, bold, unified strategy that I think we need? No. Is it progress? Do I think we're going in the right direction? Yes. I tried to do two things. I tried to change the story, change the narrative. I think people begin to understand how the food system works. And I tried to recommend some policies, and gradually we're making progress on that. So progress is being made.
You mentioned Marcus Rashford and his campaign for the widening of the availability of free school meals. What were your recommendations on free school meals and things like holiday clubs for children who may not be getting regular food when they're not in school?
So funny enough, I sent the part one of my strategy to the then CEO of Manchester United, saying could he get it in Marcus Rashford's hands, which he did. Marcus Rashford then called me and said he wanted to campaign for those recommendations. So the holiday activity and food programme, expansion of Healthy Start, were both things that I recommended, and thanks to him became policy. I think the big issue in this area now is free school meals. It wasn't expanded. Inflation means that not only do schools not have enough or as much money to spend on nutritious meals for children in poverty, but also that there are families now who didn't need free school meals who do. And I hope another department, the Department for Education, is looking at this now. I can't believe they're not, but that is something that we critically need to examine.
And how would you reframe the way we decide who is eligible for free school meals?
So at the moment, the cut-off is £7,400 salary.
I've just
before benefits.
credit
That is lower than Northern Ireland. It's lower than Scotland. I think that you need to at least double that. But I think the government needs to do a proper analysis of where people's salaries are.
I'll give them this. Yeah. Mental health could fucking sort it out. And they can say, yeah, Gordon White, yeah, schizo, yeah. And I'll be getting my money back because I don't remember fucking using credit perfect.
Is it, Henry, to be pushing
I don't know what the fuck they do.
At a time of huge financial problems in the middle of a cost of living crisis? What response are you getting when you speak directly to government?
Well, yeah, I think there are a number of things that make this difficult. You've got a treasury that has an enormous amount of debt, not a lot of money. You have a cost of living crisis, which makes interventions on health difficult in principle, potentially. And then you have an ideological crisis. So you have this kind of battle between is Brexit about being a free marketeer, or is it about protecting standards on trade and on the environment? So I think it is an incredibly difficult environment to make bold, courageous policy, and that is why I'm hoping that the Secretary of State for Health rises to that challenge. He's got a lot on his plate, but we really need to see in his health disparities white paper something that stops people who live in the 10% of poorest districts dying 7 years before those who live in richer areas. We need to tackle this. It's an embarrassment. It's a national embarrassment for our country that those health disparities are so great, and it's fantastic that the government is bringing out a paper to tackle just that. Let's hope it's bold.
You said that only state intervention now will break the junk food cycle, but don't you think there is a point where people do have to take responsibility for their own health?
Yes, yes, there is. But, and I was talking to my wife about this the other day, our drivers, our appetites, whether it's for food, reproduction, are very, very powerful. And for some of us, they're more powerful than others. And to have that fundamental urge to seek food, because we were involved in a food depleted environment, and then have companies spending millions and millions and millions of pounds to try and tempt us to eat too many. We could see it. It's not working. We could see in the obesity stats. It's not like we suddenly had a collapse of willpower as a society. There's this junk food cycle, and you can't. You can say what you want about personal responsibility. It is important for each of us. We need to understand how we can control that appetite, but we need to do that in an environment that isn't set up to make us fail.
Henry, it's good to talk to you this morning from beautiful T-Bay. Look how gorgeous that looks. That's Henry Dimbleby talking to us live on BBC Breakfast. I wonder if he's gone to that really fantastic Motorway Services Cafe.
That could well be why he's there. Maybe stop for breakfast.
Yeah.
We're going to speak to the Environment Secretary, George Eustice, in a couple of minutes' time about food, about what the government's going to do about food, about getting stuff from the field to our plate, and also about those economic figures we've had this morning, which are not great, are they, in the last half hour?
Yeah, all of that coming up in just a moment. But first of all, it's time to get the news, the travel and the weather, where you're waking up this morning.
See you in a second.
Hello, good morning. I'm Tom Hepworth. Police are continuing to question a 15-year-old boy from Oxford arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a man was stabbed. It happened in People's Park in Banbury at around 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. A number of people in the park gave the man emergency first aid before paramedics arrived. Detectives investigating the rape of a girl in the sea off Bournemouth have arrested a man. The 15-year-old said she'd been playing with friends near the Oceanarium before she was attacked in July last year. An 18-year-old man from the West Midlands was arrested on suspicion of rape and later released on bail. Politicians have issued a stark warning about a shortage of NHS dentists on the Isle of Wight. A report for councillors found only a quarter of children on the island had seen a dentist between July and December last year. It was also claimed much of the preventative work they carry out has now fallen by the wayside. Health managers say they are trying to address the issue. Plans for more than 200 homes have been unveiled in Berkshire. The new development could be built on farmland near the Piggott School in Twyford. A public consultation will begin on Wednesday. Worthing and Bournemouth have been named in a new league table of what are being called Zoom towns, hotspots for home working. The pandemic saw many people previously commuting to offices using technology to work from home instead. And with centres like this in Bournemouth providing facilities to help, the seaside towns are seen as more attractive because of the work-life balance they offer. Worthing has seen a six-fold increase in job adverts offering remote working opportunities.
The phrase was coined to describe the new phenomenon of workers moving away from traditional city hubs. In Bournemouth, the number of job adverts that offer candidates the flexibilities to work remotely is growing at a faster pace than the overall jobs available for the area. Sectors like financial services and public sector services, where remote working is generally feasible.
A new play opens this week, inspired by the Newbury bypass protests of the 1990s. Camp Albion looks at the people behind the protests, those who help focus attention on the environment as a key priority in future planning schemes. Writer Danielle Pearson says those involved were the forerunners of today's activists. Let's get a look at your weather now. Here's Bea.
Hi, good morning. Things are set to warm up as we head through this week. By the end of the week, we could be looking at temperatures in the late 20s. Today, fine and dry, plenty of sunshine. There will be, like yesterday, a little bit of cloud building as the day goes on. A lot of sunshine first thing, that cloud tending to build towards the middle part of the day. So I think slightly cloudier skies into the afternoon. Still some decent spells of sunshine, light winds as well, and temperatures peaking at around 21 degrees. As we go through tonight, that cloud tending to break up. I think we'll see some clear spells overnight, one or two mist patches. Temperatures perhaps a little bit lower than last night, down into single figures for most. So another fine day tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, less cloud as well, so those temperatures will climb, and for some it will be unbroken sunshine. We could see highs tomorrow of 23 degrees.
We're back with more in an hour's time. Bye-bye for now.
Hello, this is Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
The time is 7:36, and we're going to speak to
7:36. Woo!
Eustace here on Breakfast this morning.
I'm waking up.
Mainly about the fact that the government
Sorted out of debt.
a food strategy for England a little bit.
I've sent an email.
About how the stuff gets from the fields.
I've told them the NHS called me schizo. And here's the details. Right, they can phone them up and say, yeah, Gordon White's schizo, yeah. Right, okay, give him his money back.
In the last half hour, saying that GDP shrank by 0.3% last month in April, which is more than most economists were expecting. It doesn't look good, does it?
Well, look, as the world comes out of the pandemic,
I got a cash converter today.
A lot of global pressures, particularly inflation.
Oh my God!
Obviously, the events in Ukraine and that huge spike in gas prices is going to have a big impact on the world's economy. We're starting to see that come through, and obviously, these are disappointing figures. Some positives in there that unemployment in this country is the lowest it's been since 1974. There are some positives, but that inflationary pressure is going to have an impact on the economy.
I have to say, I'm struggling to see the positives in it. I mean, every sector, all the main sectors from services, manufacturing, construction, all down in April. That's very unusual.
It is, and the price of gas and the spike we've seen in the gas price is also obviously unusual, and the impact on industry across multiple sectors is undoubtedly going to be high. And that's what we're seeing right around the world. We're seeing inflationary pressure. We're seeing it in the US, we're seeing it in Europe, and yes, we're seeing it here too, of course.
Well, what can I say?
What we need to do is to work to try to get that inflation under control. And we need
drinking
to
coffee. And I've managed to email Credit Perfect and say to them, "Oh, you owe me money." You know what I mean? Because they've been taking £20 a month. And they have, I can believe it. I thought, oh my God, not again. You know what I mean? Seriously. So I told them, I'm schizo. Yeah, here's the hospital number. Here's my address and details. Give me my money back. Yeah.
Well, look, I haven't seen that OECD report, but different countries are affected in different ways at different times. So we actually had a stronger economy than most of the rest of the world, the strongest from the G7 as we came out of the
That's Instagram.
pandemic.
Yeah.
We then had that great
Instagram.
probably
It's
got to the
crazy.
stage that they're coming out of the pandemic slower, so their economy is showing a slightly higher growth. But the world economy at large is going to be affected by these headwinds that we have with inflationary pressure.
Brexit?
I don't accept that Brexit is a factor in this, because we're seeing trade continue, and actually the big problems that businesses are facing are principally some labour shortages and wage inflation, and that's happening right across Europe, and it's happening in the US as well. Globally, economies are finding there's a shortage of labour, and it's mainly that price of gas and oil, those energy costs, are what are eating into margins and obviously affecting people's investment decisions.
So on a day when we're talking about the economy and lots of people thinking about their own household economy and their bills and what they're facing as their families, you're publishing this food strategy this morning. And we've just heard on Breakfast from Henry Dimbleby, who did this research for you about food in England. And he says he's disappointed. He says you should have been bolder in what you're putting out today. What do you say to that criticism?
Well, I don't accept that. I've obviously spoken to Henry Dimbleby and over the weekend, and actually he welcomes the vast majority of this, not least because it's what he proposed. So he made a lot of recommendations, principally around the issue of obesity and also some issues around.
Oh, get on a bus!
Well.
I can't believe it.
Addressing all of those issues, both through our farming policy and through policies that the
I don't like buses.
Health announced earlier this year. We've got point of sale restrictions in place in supermarkets coming in later this year. That's already driving behaviour change and reformulation in the industry. So much of that's been done, and all of the flagship things he recommended, are in our strategy. But we've also added many more things
really,
that weren't in it.
Not really. I mean, there are lots of things that he talked about, didn't he? About salt and sugar in our diet, about obesity, the health aspect of his report for you. To quote him, he said a few moments ago, all that has just been kicked down the road by the government.
Well, that's not true, because actually what's happened is we've introduced point of sale restrictions for foods that are high in salt, fat or sugar. Those are being introduced later this year. Supermarkets are already changing their supply chains and already reformulating to get healthier foods. And manufacturers like Walker's Crisps, for instance, have now developed crisps that are actually so low in salt that they're no longer judged an HFSS product, as it's called. So we've already introduced measures to deal with those issues. The report also deals with many areas that actually weren't dealt with by Henry Dimbleby, recognising the role of the food industry towards our economy and levelling up in different parts of the country, and also, of course, the importance as well of food to our food security. These were issues that weren't addressed by his report. So we've covered all of the issues he covered, and then many more besides.
But not free school meals. That's something else that he raised, wasn't it, in his report to you? There'll be children heading out the door this morning, heading off to school. Lots of families worried about how they're going to pay for those school dinners. That was something that he wanted. What can you say to those families this morning who would like to see more free school meals, more help?
Well, look, we responded to his interim report by announcing plans that we've been working on for the Holiday Food and Activity Programme. That's very much around supporting children, particularly from low-income households during holiday periods. That's been a success. We're going to continue that. And obviously, the real issue is when you have a big spike in energy costs that we've seen at the moment, and household bills for energy goes up, that has a big impact on household budgets. And that's why a couple of weeks ago, Rishi Sunak made some very significant announcements to try and help the public with those, particularly vulnerable households. We've now got a package of around £37 billion that's helping households with their energy costs in particular. So that's going to be a help. That's how we've chosen to address it. So in one or two areas, we're addressing the challenge in a slightly different way to that which Henry Dimbleby recommended a year ago. But nevertheless, we're addressing those challenges.
It's not just Henry Dimbleby, though, who says he's disappointed with what we've come up with today. Which the consumer organisations say they're disappointed. The farming group Sustain, they say that this food strategy from the government looks what they call shamefully weak. This isn't a strategy, they say. It's just a feeble to-do list that may or may not get ticked? It doesn't look like you've got a huge amount of support from the industry here.
Well, I think often with lobby groups like Sustain and others, they will say, well, they don't want it, but then what the challenge for them is to say what they would like to see in it, and that's what none of them are doing, in fact, because the truth is we've committed to developing plans around land use. We've got a very ambitious agriculture policy that is going to encourage sustainable food production. We're making available grants so that we can increase production in areas where traditionally we haven't produced as much as we could. Things like salads, tomatoes and cucumbers. We're going to support a whole new generation of glass houses and what's called vertical farming, which is net zero. These are all exciting prospects that are all there in our strategy.
And as well as food, fuel is clearly a massive consideration for families, especially in rural places like Cornwall, where you talked to us from this morning. And there's a lot of questions about full fuel duty and whether the cuts that the Chancellor was talking about are actually being passed on to motorists. What more can you do to pass that on, to make sure that that cut is passed on?
Well, the government is looking at this, because obviously if we make a reduction in fuel duty, as the Chancellor did earlier in the spring statement, it's very important that that gets passed through. And I know I've heard of some evidence that in parts of the country that's not happened. And I know that both the Department for Transport and the Treasury are in discussion with the industry about why that's not happened and looking at ways to ensure that it does get passed through. You know, these are difficult times for households with this global inflation that we're seeing. Energy is the big driver of that, both through electricity bills, but also the cost of refilling the car. And we need to make sure that we get these easements that the government's put in place passed through to people.
Okay, George Eustace, thank you for joining us on Breakfast this morning.
Thank you very much.
Quarter to 8, exactly. John is here with some good news in the cricket.
There is.
Not often I say that.
Yes, there's been some changes, hasn't there, at the top of Test cricket, certainly
They're
we saw. They are, I think, and that's what you'd want to see, or certainly those in the positions of power would want to see, wouldn't they? And with Joe Root obviously stepping down as captain, he's still very much in the runs since in the 2 matches he's played since he quit that role.
Burden's gone.
Yeah, exactly. He's made
So much goodwill for him.
Yeah.
There is, exactly, and that's what we want to see. New head coach as well, sort of, be attacking, be aggressive, and there's been signs of that certainly in this second test against New Zealand. So I think plenty for England fans to be excited about, and plenty to build on today, heading into the 4th day. Yeah, Trent Bridge. Yeah, very good morning. Joe Root has done it again. His fastest test century, perhaps no surprise. Teammate Ollie Pope called him England's greatest ever. The Surrey batsman starred himself on what was a good day at Trent Bridge yesterday with a century of his own. He made 145 before Joe Root went further, passing 150. England resuming today, 80 runs behind New Zealand after some pleasing performances all round.
We want to get as close to them as we can, if not ahead. The pitch has started to spin a little bit, so obviously that might provide Leach a few opportunities. So hopefully we can sneak ahead and put them under some pressure. And then, because it's such a quick scoring ground, then they've almost got to try and bat us out of it initially. And then if we can get some early wickets, then we'll see.
Now, one of the very best in rugby union, tributes are being paid to the former British and Irish Lions captain and Welsh fire half Phil Bennett, who's died at the age of 73. On the field, he produced some special moments, helping Wales to win 2 Five Nations Grand Slams. He also starred in the Lions' historic unbeaten tour of South Africa in 1974. After he retired, he said his proudest moment came in a Leinster shirt, beating the All Blacks. He was regarded as one of the game's all-time greats. Phil Bennett, who's died at the age of 73. Northern Ireland manager Ian Barraclough insists he's going nowhere despite his side's recent poor run. They needed this late goal from Johnny Evans to salvage a 2-2 draw with Cyprus in the Nations League. Boos were heard from sections of the crowd, with fans unhappy that Northern Ireland have now gone 14 games without a win in the competition. In tennis, British number 2, Dan Evans, won the Nottingham Open for the second time after a straight sets win over Australian Jordan Thompson. Evans didn't drop a set through the entire tournament. No time, though, for celebrating afterwards. He was straight in the car to head down to Queens ahead of his match there tomorrow.
It's a long drive down to London, so think about it for the 3 hours. It's amazing. I love playing on the grass. Every time I get to play on this court, I appreciate it. I've done a lot of hours training here. down the road in Loughborough, so it's close to home, and I do feel the love from you guys. So thanks a lot for coming out again and hanging around to watch us.
And 4 days before the US Open starts, Rory McIlroy has won a tournament on the PGA Tour at a time, of course, when many players are defecting to the Saudi-backed Live Golf Tour. He remains on the PGA Tour, pipping Tony Finau by 2 shots here to win the Canadian Open. It's his first win since October, the victory taking him to 21 PGA Tour wins, one ahead of Greg Norman, who's been the driving force behind the breakaway Live Golf Series.
You're going up against the best, and beating the best is, always makes it extra special. And then I alluded to, I had extra motivation, of what's going on across the pond. The guy that's spearheading that tour has 20 wins in the PGA Tour, and I was tied with him, and I wanted to get one ahead of him, and I did. So that was really cool for me, just a little, sense of pride on that one.
Bit of fire in the belly there.
Yeah.
From Rory McIlroy.
Yeah.
Nice to see. John, thanks very much indeed. Getting quite hot elsewhere as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wait till you see Carol's weather map. Look at this, everybody. Morning, Carol.
Good morning, Sal. Good morning to you too. You can see, as Sal's talking about, Western Europe is hot. It has been hot for the last few while. And while we're stationary in this chart, I want to show you ourselves. This is a picture midweek. We've got these russet colours indicating the temperature is rising, more especially across England and Wales. Across Scotland and Northern Ireland, we've got lighter colours, so not as hot for you. Here we've got a weather front, and that weather front's going to be slipping southwards as we head towards the latter part of the week. But around this area of high pressure, we're sucking up that hot air, not 44 degrees, I hasten to add. It's more likely to be about 30. But as the weather front comes south into Saturday, not only will it bring some rain with it, it will bring fresher conditions as well. So to highlight that, in Glasgow this week, you can see how it's fairly cloudy, it's damp. Here's this weather front. Temperatures up to the high teens. But in Northampton, we're looking at a lot of dry weather, a lot of sunshine, increasingly turning humid and hot, 30 degrees on Friday. But as that weather front slips south, it will take its rain with it, and there'll be a big drop in temperature. But today what we've got is some sunshine to start with, but the cloud building through the course of the day, some splashes of rain across the north and west of Scotland, some of that getting into Northern Ireland, and it is going to brighten up across Northern Ireland and also Wales and the southwest of England. Temperatures 13 to about 21. But pollen levels today are high or very high across most of England and all of Wales. As we head through the evening and overnight period, once again we hang on to the cloud across the southeast and also across Scotland and Northern Ireland, with more persistent rain coming into the West Highlands. There will be clear skies in between, with overnight lows between about 9 and 11 degrees. So then into tomorrow, we start off with the cloud in the southeast. That will eventually move away. Holes will develop in it anyway. And for most of the UK, it's going to be dry, it's going to be sunny, and it's going to be warm. The exception across the north and the west of Scotland, and at times Northern Ireland, where there'll be some spots of rain. But the temperature's increasing, 13 in the north to 25 in the south. Sal and John.
Carol, thanks very much indeed. We'll see you again soon.
It's coming up to 5 to 8. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning.
Now, the House of Parliament have been described in many ways over the years. It's probably fair to say that menopause friendly isn't one of them.
But maybe now, right? Because the Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, says he wants to change all that by introducing improvements like ventilating rooms, installing fans to tackle hot flushes and make working hours more flexible.
We're joined now by the author and broadcaster Mariella Frostrup, who's written a book about her experiences. Morning, Mariella, and the GP and women's health specialist, Dr. Nigat Arif. Morning, Nigat. It's lovely to see you both. Mariella, if I could just come to you first of all, what is happening in the House of Commons, and why is it so important that they're seen to be doing something?
Well, it's essentially important. First of all, what's happening is the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Lindsay Hoyle, is announcing today measures with which to support menopausal women. And I would love to be, incredibly triumphant about it. But the fact that it's taken over 2,000 years for menopause to be recognised as something that happens to 50% of the population and, is a liminal period of life that women need a little bit of support going through is still, to me, quite a shocking state of affairs. So I'm absolutely thrilled about today. I'm going to be there this evening celebrating with the Speaker, and the more menopause gets mentioned in the Houses of Parliament, the better really, because it might filter down through wider society. I mean, the struggles that women have, 1 in 10 women leave their jobs as a result of menopausal symptoms. And it's a real brain drain. You know, these are women, experienced women, obviously. And by the time you reach, you know, your mid-40s and onwards, which is when you're most likely to be going through the worst symptoms. So, I mean, it's a fantastic, really, really brilliant thing that's happening. I just wish it hadn't taken over 2,000 years.
Dr. Nighat, let me check in with you. Good morning. Hiya.
Morning.
We mentioned a couple of the proposals, the practical things like ventilation and fans and working hours. What are the kind of things that you would like to see in all workplaces, not just for MPs in Parliament and their staff, but what could all employers be doing to help?
Firstly, I have to say that through loads of brilliant campaigning from Mariella, also well-being of women as well, we've got Make the Menopause Matter campaign as well, and also Know Your Menopause and BBC Breakfast. I have to say hats off to you guys, because you did Wake Up to the Menopause, as Louise mentioned, back in 2019. This is a collective of all those groups getting together and saying, let's look at all the aspects that women are affected, because 1 million women, either through surveys we know, consider either leaving their work, don't take that promotion that they should have, or they're affected by their working conditions and are financially impacted later on. And that is something that we can't have. If it's that glass ceiling that we're talking about when it comes to gender equality, well, we need to be tackling that. So this is a collective that's come together, and loads of employers have already got on board. The BBC, in fact, women at the BBC, I did a talk for them only about a month ago talking about HRT and treatment options when they go and see their NHS doctor. The Royal Mail, Tesco's, the NHS Confederation, they've all come on board already. The changes don't have to be huge, John. They can be very small, from making sure that you've got breathable materials that the woman is able to wear, have a fan, she's able to take toilet breaks, that she's able to go to her appointments to the GP when she wants to discuss her HRT options, or even go to a specialist. Remember, we always think about menopause as being something that older women get, but actually menopausal symptoms can affect younger women who've gone through primary ovarian insufficiency, they might have gone through surgical menopause or chemical menopause. So the fact that employers are taking on board, just like we do with pregnancy, that this menopausal symptoms can affect women in the workplace is fabulous. But only small changes need to be made, but small changes create huge waves.
Mariella, one of the things that I'm really interested to read is that we mentioned, didn't we, that in the House of Commons they're supplying ventilation and fans. Now, is that the cliche of what happens to a woman in menopause who just gets hot? It's much broader than that, isn't it? It's a whole world of mental anguish that also needs to be addressed.
I think at the moment, you know, I mean, what's so important, as Nighat was saying, you know, that all of those symptoms are focused on. But to me, the most important thing of all, and you know, I say this not as a doctor, obviously, is that we can talk about it. Because as you've just said, you know, there's a myriad of symptoms. I mean, we counted 50 the other day, and we're still counting because it hasn't been investigated nearly enough, apart from anything else. And some of the most debilitating symptoms are the hidden ones. It's the things like osteoporosis and heart condition, which can result because of the catastrophic drop in hormones. And it's also things like anxiety and insomnia. They're incredibly common symptoms that until very recently weren't even recognized as such. So women going, you know, through this difficult period in their lives suddenly think they're tipping over the edge, they're going crazy. They often end up going to the doctor and getting prescribed antidepressants because of the fact that, you know, they're consumed by things like anxiety and insomnia. And the trouble is, until we have it out in the wider culture, until we're all talking about it, until there are facilities at work in order to at least create an understanding environment, we're not going to learn any more about it. So it's really important. Every little baby step is really, really important in righting what I think has been a really centuries-long wrong that speaks to the fact that women really aren't in an equal position in our society, and particularly in our workplaces, still to this day. Excuse me, to this day.
You are excused. Mariella, when you're in Parliament today and you're with Mr. Speaker and he's signing this pledge, you'll be looking around this historic place, all the wood panelling and the sort of gold paintings and all that sort of stuff. What would you say to MPs, all parties, and to the Commons and parliamentary authorities about what more they can do going forward to set an example, really, for workplaces across the country?
Well, menopause mandate does have some very specific goals, which is why all of us got together in this coalition, the likes of Davina McCall, Penny Lancaster, Lisa Snowden, doctors across the board. There's so many, in fact, almost all of the big sort of pioneering menopause players are involved. And what we want to see is every woman, as she gets into her early 40s, get an appointment with a specialist who actually knows about menopause, because unfortunately at the moment there isn't a compulsion for doctors to be fully trained in menopause, and not all of them can be, but we'd like to see more of them so that there's one in every surgery across the land. We'd also like to see HRT made free, because it absolutely should not be a socio-economic decision. There are women out there who can't afford the number of prescriptions. The government promised to change that. Caroline Harris, MP, has been campaigning very strongly. It's now been pushed back to next April, and we're terrified it's going to be pushed back further. So we want to see that change as well, because no woman should ever find herself in a situation where, just because of a lack of funds, because she wants to put food on the table for her children, she can't go out and perform to her best ability, whether it's doing her job or whatever else.
Mariella, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Nigat, thank you both for talking to us this morning.
It's coming up to 8 o'clock. Stay with us. We've got the headlines and some wonderful stories coming right up.
Welcome to my house.
Who's the real homeowner?
My instinct is that it's over and free.
And who's just baking?
Do you know where we keep the collar? Bringing this, we're done because it is.
I feel like that reveals quite a lot.
That was good.
This Is My House continues Friday at 8:30 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Hello, morning. Our headlines today. New figures released this morning show that the UK economy shrank in April despite predictions of modest growth.
Cost of living pressures are really starting to take hold. People having less money to spend in all parts of the economy on services and goods. I'm at this door factory in Rochdale finding out how it's affecting businesses like this.
A strategy to secure the future of the food on our plates is unveiled by the government later, but critics say it doesn't do enough to improve the health of people or the planet.
Personal items belonging to the missing British journalist Dom Phillips and his Brazilian colleague have been discovered by police in a remote area of the Amazon rainforest.
He's done it. 5 years after being horrifically injured in the Manchester Arena bombing, Martin Hibbert conquers Mount Kilimanjaro.
Don't write off somebody because in a wheelchair. Look at what they can do when they've got the right help and support. They can climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Good morning. England's greatest ever, how another Joe Root century, his fastest, has his teammates purring over his performance.
Good morning. Some southern and eastern areas starting off with some sunshine today, but cloud will develop through the day with some sunny intervals, and it's going to get warmer, especially for England and Wales through this week. I'll have all the details later.
Hello there, good morning. It's Monday morning, June the 13th, and our top story is some news which has broken here in the last hour. Some new figures for you. The UK economy shrank by 0.3% in April. That's the GDP, the gross domestic product, basically the size of the economy as measured by the Office for National Statistics.
Services, construction and manufacturing are all down. Ben is at a factory in Rochdale for us this morning. Morning, Ben. How can you explain this to us?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The economy shrank by 0.3% in April. People having less money to spend on goods and services. And it affects businesses like this one, this door factory in Rochdale. They make 3,000 of these doors every single day. It's all go here. Just have a listen how noisy it is. The machines are all in full flow. Unfortunately, the same can't be said of the UK economy as a whole. We got that figure that showed that the UK economy shrank by 0.3% in April. Now that follows the fact it shrank in March by 0.1%. And the problem is, this may seem very removed from daily life, but if there's no growth, that generally means there's less money going around. Less money means generally fewer jobs and less investment. the cost of living crisis is partly to blame for all of this, and people have less money to spend. That is something that Angela has noticed in her shop.
We're seeing as many customers coming through the door, but people are spending less in the shop, so they're considering their purchases a little bit more than they were before. I think people are struggling with things like regarding their heating, their electricity. At the wholesalers, we've seen a 50% increase in the items that we sell. Me, as a buyer, we're having to consider our purchases a little bit more as well. So maybe not the top end of the products, but a bit more middle of the road.
Well, let's find out what this all means. We're going to speak to Nina Scarrow, who's an economist who's joined us here at the factory this morning. Nina, shrinking of 0.3% doesn't sound a lot. How worried should we be, if at all?
We should be quite worried, and it might sound like a small number, but normally what you would want to see is some growth. And this is now coming after another month of contraction, so actually it is quite worrisome.
And what does this mean in a practical sense for people's day-to-day lives?
Well, this decline is, in a sense, a reflection of what people are doing in their day-to-day lives. So people have seen costs of essentials going up. They're spending more on energy, on food. Businesses are feeling less confident because their labor costs have gone up, their input costs have gone up, and they're looking forward to the future as well, and they're feeling quite uncertain about that. So what we're seeing here is households deciding to spend less, businesses deciding to invest less, and all of that is culminating in quite a poor GDP outlook.
The figures showed us that every section of the economy shrank: services, production, construction. How unusual is that?
It's pretty unusual. I'm sure we would have seen something like that during the COVID periods. I think the last time that happened is at start of 2021, which doesn't sound like that long ago, but the only reason for that is because those were still the COVID restriction months and quarters. Otherwise, it's quite unusual.
Okay, Nina, thank you very much for explaining all of that for us. The government has responded to these latest figures in a statement. The Treasury, the Chancellor, has said that the UK is not alone in facing these kinds of economic pressures and slowing growth. Of course, the concern will be is how the UK fares compared to other countries as well in the coming months and years. But from me at the Door Factory, Crystal Doors here in Rochdale, back to you.
Ben, thank you.
Let's get more of a political reaction to this. Shall we speak to our correspondent Nick Eardley, who's in Westminster for us? And Nick, these numbers are worse than many in government expected, as well as economists like the ones we've just heard.
Ready, Brett?
I think that's absolutely right. And Ben was saying there has been that message from the
And some
Treasury this
raspberry
morning. They think there's
ketones.
global pressures and that the UK isn't immune to them. And we've had the Chancellor say he does have a plan for economic growth, which will help people, he hopes, with the cost of living crisis. But Labour are saying this morning, look, there just hasn't been enough done to prepare for this, that there are structural problems now, and they're accusing the government of not doing enough. About half an hour ago, we put some of those points to the Environment Minister, George Eustice. Here's what he had to say on those figures.
As the world comes out of the pandemic, there's obviously a lot of global pressures, particularly inflation. And obviously, the events in Ukraine and that huge spike in gas prices is going to have a big impact on the world's economy. We're starting to see that come through. And obviously, these are disappointing figures.
So that's the government's response. One interesting thing that the Treasury is saying this morning is that they think that ending mass COVID testing had a big impact on
Vitamin D.
That took
Vitamin D.
0.5% off of GDP. If you hadn't had that, there would have actually been 0.1% growth. But look, I'm sure that's not going to mean or give all that much comfort to people facing a cost of living crisis at the moment. And I think the government is going to continue to feel pressure to say just what it is going to do to address slow economic growth, or as we're now seeing those declining figures. Ministers keep saying, look, we've got a plan, we're going to grow the economy, and that's going to help with the cost of living crisis. I suspect many will turn around today and say, well, look, we need to see some evidence of that soon.
You're going to have a busy day today, aren't you, Nick? Because you're also in Westminster and in Belfast. We get a sense of the government's plans for the Northern Ireland Protocol. Just talk us through what we're expecting there.
Yeah, we'll get that legislation finally this afternoon. It's going to be really controversial because what it allows ministers in London to do is override quite significant parts of the Brexit deal to make it easier to send goods to Northern Ireland. It will give the British courts more of a say, European courts less influence over how the protocol is policed. This is going to be so controversial because a lot of people conclude that it breaks international law because the UK signed up to that Brexit treaty and now it's saying we're not going to abide by all of it. The UK government says that isn't the case. We'll get more of their reasons for that legal opinion later on. But it's going to cause a big row with the EU, potentially a big row with the United States, who've talked a lot about the importance of the protocol. Could cause some pretty significant splits in the Conservative Party as well, because there are Brexiteer Tories who think that the plan coming today is a really good one. There are some in other parts of the Conservative Party who say this goes against our values and it breaks international law, so we're not comfortable with it. So it'll be really interesting to see the specifics later, but I think we can be pretty sure there's a pretty big row coming on this as well.
Okay, for now, Nick Eardley, thank you very much indeed.
Now, Brazilian police say they have found personal items belonging to the British journalist Dom Phillips, who's been missing in a remote part of the Amazon rainforest for more than a week.
These items include Mr. Phillips' books and a backpack with some clothes in, and he went missing with another man, Bruno Pereira, as our South America correspondent Katie Watson explains.
It was along this stretch of water that Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira disappeared, the vastness of the Amazon plain to see. The armed forces are out searching, so too are the indigenous communities, many of whom knew Bruno personally. He helped train indigenous groups to defend themselves against the increasing threat of illegal fishermen and poachers. Dom Phillips was writing a book, which was why the two men were travelling together, Bruno introducing Dom to people he knew. The indigenous community has set up camp near where they disappeared, who were asked not to identify anyone because they fear reprisals.
A fisherman financed by the narcos will do what they probably did to Bruno, end their life, because they see us as an obstacle.
Our river guide is Felipe. He and his father run a fishing tourism business, and the two men were staying in their small hotel. Dom was really interested in the environment and was passionate about the Amazon, and told us that he was writing, Felipe tells me. He interviewed us and asked us about our work. Upriver, we come across a search team focused on a small area. The indigenous teams alongside, they know the terrain better than anyone.
There's a police boat in the distance. Beyond that, there's another one further into the jungle. We've been told we can't go any further, but clearly something they're looking at. We've been here for several hours now.
Shortly after, it sealed off. We were told later that this was where Bruno and Dom's belongings were found. The search teams continue, but these new developments point to a devastating conclusion, and hopes faded of finding the two men alive. Katie Watson, BBC News, in Valley de Javari.
I'm going to be speaking to Dom Phillips' sister, Sian. She's going to join us here on the sofa in a few minutes' time.
Now, more homegrown produce and more support for farmers. There'll be these central promises within the government's food strategy for England, which is being released later on today.
Yeah, the idea is that this plan should improve food security, but well-publicised recommendations about things like reducing consumption of salt and sugar and junk food are not expected to be included after all. Here's our environment correspondent, Claire Marshall.
From the fields to our forks, more than 3 years in the making, this is the government's plan for how our entire food system should look. At its heart are the farmers. Growing our own will boost food security, the government says, and create jobs. Among the plans, a framework for farming the land sustainably, including taking care of nature, a consultation on whether the public sector, hospitals, schools and care homes should spend more of their budgets on locally grown or higher standard food. There will be a review of the labour shortage, including using more machines and issuing more visas for migrants. No mention of reducing meat consumption, but there will be money for research into meat alternatives. This comes after a wide-ranging review by restaurateur Henry Dimbleby.
I'm hoping that the Health Secretary will be bold and brave in a difficult political context
and act to break that junk food cycle. And we get away from this narrative of personal responsibility and education, which is important, but it isn't going to get us out of the hole we're in.
After withering criticism of an earlier leaked draft, the National Farmers Union now welcomes the plans.
I think it's really welcome to see government committing to food production and food security. There's a strong commitment in there to maintain our current levels of self-sufficiency and to produce more effectively of what we're good at, more of our fruit and vegetables, which have been in decline. So, that's a laudable ambition. There's strong commitments on government procurement, more British, more local into our schools and hospitals. And that's very, very welcome indeed for farmers. But I think all of this will depend on the policies that are put in place to deliver it. So it's the start of a journey.
Many campaigners are asking, though, what happened to the proposed sugar and salt tax and healthier school meals? According to the government, these will be addressed in another white paper at a later date. Claire Marshall, BBC News.
A group of US senators from both sides of the political divide has reached an agreement on potentially tightening gun controls in America following a spate of mass shootings and a weekend of protests. The measures could include tougher background checks for younger buyers and preventing the purchase of firearms for other people. The country's biggest gun lobby group, the National Rifle Association, said it will oppose any effort to deprive Americans of their right to own firearms.
The family of a former British soldier who was killed while helping Ukrainian troops to defend the city of Severodonetsk have paid tribute to him.
Yeah, this is Jordan Gatley, who left the army in Britain in March, and he's the second Briton to die in the conflict. He's been described by his dad as a hero.
Joe Inwood joins us now live from Kyiv this morning. Joe, what more can you tell us about Jordan Gatley and the situation right now, the fight going on for Severodonetsk?
So Jordan Gatley is a former British soldier, and he died, we understand, on the front lines in Severodonetsk on Friday. He was fighting there with the Ukrainian forces. Now, his father, Dean, put out an emotional Facebook tribute to his son, said he was a hero and will be forever in their hearts. But he also gave us a bit more information about what Mr. Gatley was doing here. He said he was helping to train Ukrainian forces, but obviously he wasn't training them when he died because he was on the front lines in Severodonetsk. This is really the focal point of Russia's invasion at this point. We understand it's a battle that's characterized by fierce street fighting, intense artillery barrages. It's really quite difficult to get information out at the moment. The mobile phone lines are down, but we understand that the Russians, after having been pushed back a little themselves, are now very much on the offensive, and in recent days have pushed the Ukrainians back further and further into the industrial area outside of the center. And we understand they've now started to try and blow the last bridge that connects the city of Severodonetsk to its neighboring city, Lysychansk, cut off the Ukrainian defenders and try and create some sort of siege, as they did in Mariupol.
Joe, thanks very much indeed. That's Joe Inwood live in Kyiv for us this morning.
Just after 8:15, we've had some quite heavy stories, haven't we, this morning over the last couple of hours, but we have one amazing, inspirational Monday morning story that's going to put a big smile on your face in a few minutes' time when we catch up with Martin Hibbert, who, as we know, was trying to get to the summit of Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, Martin's Mountain is a story we have followed from the very, very start here on Breakfast, and there is a beautiful film shot by a team from BBC Breakfast who went to Kilimanjaro with him. That's coming up in just a sec.
First, let's see if the weather can put a smile on our faces, shall we? Carol can always put a smile on. She's smiling. She's smiling.
Oh, bless you, John. Good morning, both. Good morning to you too. For some of us, we're starting off with some blue skies, as you can see here in Hertfordshire, but there is a fair bit of cloud across parts of the north and also the west. The other thing about today is the pollen levels across Wales are high, and across most of England, they're either high or very high. For the rest of us, they're low or moderate. So we've got all this cloud across the north and the west, some sunshine to start with, but having said that, the cloud's going to continue to build through the day, and it will certainly be thick enough as it is now to produce some light rain and some drizzle across Scotland, some of that getting into Northern Ireland. So you can see how the clouds built through the course of the morning. We're looking at 11 o'clock, of course, so we're looking at sunny intervals rather than wall-to-wall blue skies. Now, through the rest of the day, what you'll find is it will slowly brighten up across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. And if you're going to the Tennis at Queen's today, it should stay dry. Temperatures today, a little bit lower than they were yesterday. Yesterday we reached 23 at Heathrow. Today we're looking at 19 or 20. As we head on through the evening and overnight, some of the cloud melts away. We hang on to it in the far southeast, and we've also got more cloud coming in across Scotland and Northern Ireland, bringing in some rain. These are our overnight lows, and it means where we've got the clear skies by night, we'll start with some sunshine tomorrow. The cloud in the far southeast breaking up, but we hang on to it again across Scotland and Northern Ireland with some light and patchy rain, and top temperatures a little bit higher tomorrow at about 23. Sam and John.
Carol, thanks very much indeed. We'll see you again soon.
Now, we promised you some inspiration, some motivation, and this is it this Monday morning, because we've got an update on Martin Hibbert's attempt to get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and, well,
he did it.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing. 5 years after being paralysed in the Manchester Arena bomb, Martin has been trying to reach the summit of Africa's highest mountain in his specialised wheelchair, helped by a team of local guides and porters.
So it's hard to underestimate just how tough this has been, how grueling, not just as a physical challenge, but also the mental challenge as well, hasn't it? It's involved defiance and courage and friendship and love and support from some very special friends. And Graham Satchell has the whole amazing story.
The top of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa, and Martin Hibbert is on the final approach. Only 65% of climbers make it this far. Martin has done it in a wheelchair.
I could just see the sign at the top. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry. Oh, it was just such a relief to get there and know that we've done it. Something I'll always remember. Just so proud, just so proud.
It is an extraordinary achievement for a man who was nearly killed in the Manchester Arena attack 5 years ago. The journey up the mountain starts in dense rainforest.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And a bit of a song and dance there as well, so I'm nice and warm now. See you in a bit.
Martin's team have hired a group of expert guides and porters who will help him navigate the challenges of the next 5 days. And around Martin are some key people, medical staff, members of the charity, the Spinal Injuries Association, Little there, and best friends like Steve, who has been at Martin's side for every step of the last 5 years.
Steady. You all right, Steve?
Yeah.
It's luscious, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And fabulous. It really is fabulous. We're going to go through all emotions, aren't we? But you know, that's been my life for the last 5 years. Everything that I wanted, you know, when the Abadis wanted to destroy that 5 years ago. So what a perfect reflector for, you know, doing this together with the people that saved my life. You know, there's no better message.
When Salman Abedi detonated his suicide bomb at the Manchester Arena, it killed 22 people and left hundreds injured. Martin and his daughter Eve were less than 20 meters away from the explosion. The attack left Martin paralyzed from the waist down. He was hit with 22 pieces of shrapnel. One severed his spinal cord. Martin has always been determined to turn an evil act of terror into a force for good.
That's why I'm doing this, to show that, you know, don't write off somebody because in a wheelchair. Look at what they can do when they've got the right help and support. They can climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you know. So there's a bigger narrative to it. I'm feeling it on the arms now. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Disabled people can literally do anything they want to do. So hopefully people see that and embrace disability and not turn their back on it. So there's a long way to go, but hopefully doing this has highlighted just how important, you know, help and support is. I think one of my shrapnel wounds is rubbing. Is it? You just have a look at it. Go on. Yeah, it does look a bit angry. That's the one, yeah. Just do it. I know it sounds really does. We just itch it, just like really gentle. Oh yeah. This is a friendship you'll never break. I'm filling in the gaps for the stuff that Martin can't do himself, in effect. I'm just going to put some sun cream on it just lubricate it a bit. Have a look at the one on the right. I'm making sure his skin is good, because if he ends up with pressure damage or moisture damage or shearing damage, like that could end this whole thing in one go. Yeah. Not tucked in or just pushed down?
The weather changes, conditions are tough, and there's worsening soon.
Do you need any ibuprofen? Oh, that's right. You can take that about 11, half 11 tonight. Yeah. Okay.
As the team make camp, Martin's best friend Steve is struggling. He has altitude sickness, headache, shortness of breath, nausea, and tries to head back down the mountain.
It's been my one worry, but yeah, I've got it. Got it for him. Give me 2 minutes. He wanted to do this for his wife, who passed away a couple of years ago, so it'll be gutted. Where is everybody this morning? I think there's a lot of trepidation in camp. Maybe the best way to describe it.
The team are nearing the top. The terrain has become a mix of large boulders and tough-going gravelly sand.
You have to tell us if you are getting really tired. You have to tell us if you're feeling sick. You have to tell us if you're starting to really get a headache. Okay?
A final team meeting. It's decided for safety reasons that the team will split up and attempt to get to the top in different groups.
Everyone has to just find their pace. Don't try and keep up with people, otherwise you definitely will not get to the top. And if at any point you get tapped on the shoulder and told you need to go down the mountain, you will be taken down the mountain.
Right. So you back down there.
Just a short while after, Chris starts to feel unwell.
Get back. Say goodbye to him.
Martin has now lost 2 key members of his team. Ascent day, and Martin sets off in the dark. He is attempting to get to the top with the expert guides who have supported him all the way up. The hope is the rest of the team will reach the top at the same time as Martin. As he battles the mountain, Martin is thinking about his family, his daughter Eve, his wife Gabby, and his mum Janice, who died in November last year. He has brought some of her ashes to spread at the top. The final part of the ascent is most difficult. Martin is lifted over huge boulders. But finally, he makes it to Gilman's Point, one of the 3 official summits at the top of Kilimanjaro. The rest of the team are on a different part of the mountain, so there is the briefest celebration, some photos, and then a moment Martin will never forget.
We've done it. We're at the top of Kilimanjaro. Sadly, my mum passed away in November, and I know she was immensely proud. I said she was going to be with me. She has. So I just said, when I got to the top of Kilimanjaro, spread some ashes, play our favourite tunes. I'm going to do that now. So it's Carpenters, For All We Know. This is for you, Mum. That is a very special moment, and to play that music as well, which is a very special song between me and my mum. Getting emotional on that. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Stop it. You're fucking me up. Stop it. I'm sorry. What's on the telly? I don't know. I've been sorting out my shit, you know. This is it, you know what I mean? Like, oh, shut up, will ya?
Final farewell. It is a joyous celebration, a thank you, and a goodbye.
I think we'll all come back as different people, and I certainly will do. Just the love and like that, them just yeah. I'll definitely be a different person there going on, and I think everyone else will be as well. You know, it doesn't stop here. You know what I mean? We've climbed a mountain, but we now need to move mountains to get what we need to do in terms of social care change, you know, changes in accessibility and things like that. So I'm going to need all these people to continue giving me that love and support.
Well done, Martin. He's been in touch already this morning, hasn't he? He sent us a little message to say thank you to everybody for their response to that film and everything he's achieved over the last few days. And he will be here with us tomorrow on the sofa. Pretty impressive.
I know, I thought he'd just want to lie in bed for a week, but
No.
he's coming straight home and he's going to be here tomorrow. That would be brilliant. And that report, we should say, was produced and filmed by BBC Breakfast's own Kate Varley
Oh, there they are.
and
Look at them.
Gannon. You can see them
Yeah.
there. They made it to the summit with Martin. And, you know, it's...
They're not going to be happy about their photo being on the telly.
they'll
But
love
look
it.
at that. Not only did they film all of that, they made it to the top of Kilimanjaro while working and filming and, you know, staying with Martin the whole time. So
Imagine.
that's unbelievable.
They
Well
had
done.
to pull out. Imagine.
Yes.
Never have known what happened.
No.
No, well done, Martin. Well done to all of them. And that support team, that phenomenal support team that he's got with him. Because he's
Hi, thanks for calling O2. If you're calling on the number you want to talk to us about, say yes. If not, say no.
no.
If you know the O2 number you're calling about, say or enter the number now. Otherwise, say, I don't know it.
I don't know it.
Okay, no problem. If your device is lost or stolen, press 1. If you're calling about an unused number, press 2. If your pay monthly phone is being barred, press 3. For a new contract, it's 4. If you're thinking of leaving us, it's 5. For anything else, it's 6. Thank you. If you're calling about pay as you go, press 1. If you're calling about pay monthly, press 2. If you're a business customer, press 3. Sorry, I didn't catch that. If you're calling about pay as you go, press 1. If you're calling about pay monthly, press 2. Thank you. I'll just put you through to someone who can help. This call may be recorded to help us with training. in a queue and will be answered as soon as one of our advisors becomes available. Your call is in a queue and will be answered as soon as one of our advisors becomes available. Thank you for calling on to my name is Rohan. How may I help you?
Hello, sir. You're O2. What it is, I've had a letter today saying I owe you £523. What it is, you've got two contracts. You've got there's a business contract and a personal contract. And when you phoned me to get in a contract with you, you harassed me and coerced me into contracts when I was in section units, locked up and drugged up on medication. So these contracts I've not been able to stop because I've been not being able to get my phone. Sometimes my phone's taken off me. The situation is I'm not paying a penny. I'm just going to tell you. I've got adult social care, social services. They're going to take control of the situation. I've got to phone them in a minute, and we've got to get this sorted out. You actually you sent your debts to Moorcroft. Moorcroft have heard the story, and now it's back to you again. You're writing to me. Your letter is horrible. It's as per letters, your account has been disconnected for non-payment. Well, I'm not paying it because I don't even want the contract. You know, I never did. I was drugged up and put in section units.
Okay, well, regarding this, not to worry. I'll surely help you with this.
Yeah.
Please confirm your phone number.
My number is there's one ending 535. That
Please give me the complete number.
I don't think I can. That was a Samsung contract. It was a Samsung phone and a SIM. I don't even use it. I've not used it. You know, this is it. I think I used it for music, to listen to music when in the hospitals.
Okay, but have you got any account number or any order number, anything that's
Let's have a look. This letter, account number 05182127.
So that will be the account number. The account number will start from 10 or the order number will start from MS. You can check one of your emails. You might be having some of the emails from O2. Or on the bill as well, you will find the number or the order number.
No, don't say. It just says, "Dear Sir, Madam." It don't even say my name. Oh, yes, it does. It says at the top. I don't know what to say really. Can you find out from my address? If I'll give you my postcode.
Let me check with your first name. Could you please confirm your first name?
Gordon White. Gordon. Gordon.
GOR.
Yeah, DON.
Okay, and your last name?
White. Colour white.
Okay, and could you please confirm your postcode?
SO533 Foxtrot uniform.
SO53?
Yeah.
So it's S0, right?
Sugar Oscar.
Okay.
533 Foxtrot uniform.
Foxtrot uniform.
Yeah.
All right. And could you please confirm your email address registered with that particular account?
Yes, Gordon_White 67 at yahoo.co.uk.
All right. Was this a business account?
There's two. One's a personal account with a Samsung phone, and it's ending 5. I'll just try and find out if I can get the number.
Okay, well, regarding this, please be rest assured. What I'll do is I'll get the call connected to our business team.
Yeah.
For the assistance, okay? Please share.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're unable to connect your call at this time. Please try again later.
You're taking a piss. Oh well. I'll have to phone again at 9 o'clock. I thought 8:30 would be right. I'll have to start again. Phone him up. Anyway, I've got this. Look. You know what this is, don't you? Yeah, you're going to love this. Whoa, yeah. You ready for this? Da-da-da-da-da. These are no good. Yeah, these are no good. These can go in the bin. Right, now, new scales. Oh, look at this. Woohoo. Yep. £5. That's great. Oh, hey. What the fuck? Oh, that's stinging. Oh, I'd shave. Oh. That's the phone, will ya? Fucking hell. Come on, fucking hell. I got £400 out of Curry's the other day. Yeah, I was on the phone. I was like, right, let's sort it out. You know what I mean? Then I got 400 quid back. Not in my hand, into my creation account. Come on, doctors. Fucking hell. NHS doctors, look. Oh, I got a backache. Oh. This is the NHS doctors. I'm calling 9 o'clock and they're not answering. It's 15:15 now. I phoned them about 10 to 9. It's been 25 minutes. They're not doing a very good job, are they? Hello. I've been waiting a week now for the doctor's reports from my medical history. Yes, it's like it's the finance department I'm talking to. They want the information to actually carry on with the case. And it needs, you say I'm schizophrenic bipolar disorder, and then you say I'm schizoaffective disorder, and it's from 2004, roughly about then when I first got sectioned. That's what I need, the medical records, very urgently. Yeah, there's something else as well. I'm down to £28 until I get paid next week, so I'm going to cash converters today. But I've got the hospital operation for my hernia with Mr. Wakefield. I'm going to need transport to go to Winchester to the hospital to have the operation. Yeah, okay. Hello. I'm going. It says here this is arrangements have been made for you to come to the hospital for general surgery, operation procedures. Mr. Wakefield, Wednesday the 13th of July, 12:30 p.m. The treatment centre, level D, Borough Wing, Royal Hampshire County Hospital. I've got to wear some cotton shorts, boxer shorts, and I've got pajamas coming. Well, I really need someone to be with me. Yeah, I can get into a car. Yeah. No. It was January, I think. I had they checked me for a week. About a week. I think they made a mistake. What? Sorry. Oh no, I'm fairly okay. You know. I've got a hernia. I've got lower backaches, and I'm half blind. But like I say, yeah, it's the treatment centre, level D, Borough Wing. Yeah, Royal Hampshire County Hospital. Yeah. Right now, I really must. I've got a letter today, a threatening letter from O2. That they want £523 for a Samsung contract. That I've not even been using the Samsung. It's just I've been accepting contracts whilst I've been in and out of section units. Sometimes in a section unit, drugged up and accepting a contract. That was when I first was in Antelope House. So we've got to get all this records, all this history. Email it to me at Gordon_White67@yahoo.co.uk. Send me the medical history so that I can forward it on to these people and get them to squash this contract. Yeah, I've waited a week, so try and get that done today if you can. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Well, she hung up as quick as possible. She was like, oh my God. What am I doing? Well, oh yeah. Oh, he's not going to answer. I'll get in touch with his brother. Hello, Julie Bursey. She's my social worker. She put 2 alarms in my home on top of the one I already got. So that's 3 alarms in a 1-bedroom place. And Creation, one of the finance people I've been talking to, said she's crazy. Crackers. The man said she was crackers to put 3 alarms in my home. So I've got 1 now because I sent 2 back, what she wanted me to have. And the other thing is, it's just pretty old people, really old people. It's fire alarm, a fire alarm. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry? One in the living room, 2 in the hallway. That's 3 alarms. Now, I'm quite happy with the services I get from Vivid Homes. That they give me an alarm. They've serviced the alarm. They put a new one in. So I'm all right with that. But Julie, she's gone and got me more alarms. Sorry? Yeah, Vivid Homes, yeah. Gordon White. There's also KeySafe. I want it gone, you know, because it's in the way. It's on the wall where my go on. 61 Cox Row. 8867. Yeah. She normally comes. Yes, KeySafe. Yeah, they put it on the side of the wall where my garden table is, and I want it gone because I want to put some shelves up there. Do you want it moved or gone altogether? Just gone, taken away. Yeah. I've been here since October '99. That's 20 years. I don't need KeySafe. I don't need fire alarms. I'm perfectly okay. I look after myself, but I have found it very hard with NHS mental health. Misdiagnosing me is schizophrenic bipolar disorder, and it locked me up for several years. The situation is, I used to buy and sell pianos. I used to work for RHP Pianos. I covered Somerset in London and the Dutch Embassy. Everybody had, it was a good day for them because they had pianos from 175, and I was selling pianos for years. But the problem was my family, the way they were. My mum got me sectioned. That's what she done. Yes, please. Yeah. I also want to. I want her to come round and help me with these debts. I'm going through debts. I got £400 back from Currys. I got rid of Tesco Mobile. I got rid of all the different debts. O2. I'm dealing with O2 now. They want £600. I'm trying to get all this sorted out, but Julie, what she could do is she could get my medical records for me. She could help me see my grandchildren and my daughter. My mum and my brothers are under investigation with the police. The police are doing an investigation because my brother was selling loads of cannabis over the years, and my mum she never praised my brothers. No, she never praised me. She praised my brothers, and I just can't believe the way it went for me to be sectioned and locked up so long. I was a Cub Scout, Army Cadet. I was raising money for Help the Aged when I was a child. I won a civil case when I was a child. I won £80 out of someone. I won magistrates and crown courts and family courts. Yeah, go on. Oh, right, okay, all right. I know. Yeah. So we've got KeySafe. We've got KeySafe. We've got the alarms, and she's got medical records. I need medical records. Can I give you my email? Yeah, it's Gordon_White 67 at yahoo.co.uk. Yeah, because that's 07511197665. I think you've got a number ending in 3535. That's the contract I'm trying to get rid of. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So I've got medical records sent to my email so I can pass it on to the finance people. I'm trying to stop. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I stopped my British Gas. I've got to phone them up because I actually they were going to take £40 out of my account, and now I've only got £28. And I had £20 taken out of me this morning by someone else, by credit finance or whatever it is. I don't know. yeah, I to think all this going on. I mean, I've been dragged in and out of my house several times, you know, and it's traumatizing. You know, my brothers were drug dealers. My mother was always keeping everything quiet and hush. Never said nothing. Our house was filled up with people smoking. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. If she can take me to Eastleigh today, because she does take me to Eastleigh sometimes. If you can get her or someone to help me today, I've got to go cash converters, get some money. Yeah. Okay. Bye bye then. Yeah, that's adult social care. I've really got to go. Not yet. Well, actually, soon. I've got to go to. Well, actually, I can't go yet because I'm waiting for a bench to turn up today. Not a court bench. Yeah, I'd love it. Let's go to the courts. Yeah, let's go. I'll be getting money out of the NHS. I would. I know I would. Because it's the NHS that screwed me up. I'm going to say goodbye later. No, I'm going to say goodbye now. Yeah, now, because I've got to go out. I'll go to cash converters. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've got to do. I'll see you later.